The Boy Scouts of America has sued a fellow volunteer. And this is actually interesting for a number of reasons. And this had me torn of the dichotomy of capitalism and business in America. On one end, and let me kind of break this story down. It seems like Boys of America, they had this volunteer who was a lady who, for a number of years, I think she volunteered for like 20 or around 20 years with Boys of America. And then she ultimately left and not started a competing company, but it seems like she started to try to help out some parents as well as some scouts with who were kind of going through the program just based on her history. And this had me not torn in a way because I think both of them are right, in my opinion. We'll get off into the lawsuit and go through it. But on one end, and I tell you this all the time, if you've been at a job for 10, 20, 30 years, you have some information that you can go along from that job and start your own business. And that's essentially what the lady did. Her name is Alice. And again, we'll pull up the website or the lawsuit as well as the website. But Alice, essentially, she worked 20 plus years with Boy Scouts of America. She understood some gaps in the process, and she kind of broke away at some point and started her own really educational media type company. She's not selling anything per se, but she's making videos. It seems like she's providing some tools to help out parents as well as Boy Scouts reach their goals of Eagle Scouts or whatever the case may be. Now, is that wrong? No. Like I said, I teach you guys all the time. If you've been in a job for 20, 30 years, you have some information and you can leverage that information as well as gaps in the process to start a business. But on the other end of it with Boy Scouts America, it's almost like, man, it's tough because you know that somebody's going to be working with you for a long period of time. I guess at some point they're going to leave. And to the extent that they leave, they have all this information that they have obtained year after year working with the company. Now, as long as they're not kind of doing anything illegal as far as using IP without permission or whatever the case may be, it seems like, in my opinion, they're right. It seems like what Alice did was she got some domain names that were free and available, and that's all good to go. And Boy Scouts of America didn't like that, and that's where everything started to fall apart. So that's where we're going to pick up at. I do want to show her Alice's website. Not the website, but her YouTube channel, because she has a YouTube channel. She has a website as well. But again, she has 123 videos. She has over 2,000 subscribers. So Scouting America is her company. Again, Scouting America. Yeah, I'm not sure. Boy Scouts of America. Scouting America, Boy Scouts of America. Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess it could be looked at as infringement, but yeah, I'm not one to decide on that. I'll let you guys decide that. But I do want to pull up the website here. I mean, the lawsuit, so we can go through it here really quickly. Now, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. So please let me know what you think about it in the comment sections. So Boy Scouts of America is suing Alice K. Webb for trademark infringement. Let's read the complaint here. Plaintiff, Boy Scouts of America, has operated for over 100 years. That's crazy that they've been around for that long, and owns numerous famous scout and scouting trademarks. And most of Boy Scouts trademarks are incontestable, which means that they've been using them for at least 5 years consistently or continuously. Alice first volunteered with Boy Scouts, but then began using Boy Scout trademarks without authorization on websites, including buying domain names with Boy Scouts marks that falsely associates her sites with the Boy Scouts and their trademarks. Defendant also was attempting to use her ill-gotten domains to oppose the registration of Boy Scout trademark applications to extort a large payment from the Boy Scouts. This is getting good. We're not going to read that part, but let's continue on here. For 100 years, Boy Scouts has operated one of the premier youth organizations in the U.S. I would agree with that. I will say this. Somebody was telling me that, and when you think about it, that's the unfortunate thing about, sometimes the capitalistic society, they kind of dress this thing up, right? Where we know in China, they're doing slave labor. They're manufacturing products. They're doing it. They're having kids manufacture this stuff for extremely low wages. And we say it's bad, but it's like, okay, my iPhone costs $1,000 as opposed to $5,000. So you more so willing to turn a blind eye, even though you don't necessarily look at it that way. However, Boy Scouts of America and Girl Scouts, and somebody put it to me this way a couple weeks ago, and it kind of made sense. They said, man, compared to what they're making from the Girl Scouts selling the cookies and what they're paying the Girl Scouts, it can kind of be looked at similar to the slave wages that these Chinese manufacturers are paying these kids to manufacture a product. We don't think about it that way because we're like, okay, they're doing something noble for the greater good for the organization. However, it seems like they're taking in millions of dollars from these Girl Scouts selling the cookies, and they're giving them a fraction of the cost or the fraction of the money that's being made. So it can be looked at as a form of like kind of slave labor in a sense. We don't like to think about it that way, but it's almost dressed up a little better than just think of a kid in China sweating out for a couple dollars a day, working 8 to 10 hours. It can be a similar thing. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. But when they said that, I'm like, okay, I can see that. As messed up as it is. So let's get back to it. For 100 years, Boy Scouts has operated one of the premier youth organizations in the U.S. authorized by Congress. I did not know that. With special statutes, has developed substantial goodwill symbolized by the famous and incontestable Scout and Scouting marks, including the family of Scout and Scouting formative marks. So it seems like the federal government is in on it. So unbeknownst to Boy Scouts, Alice, an adult volunteer, member of Boy Scouts organization and a longtime volunteer, registered 3 domain names incorporating the mark Scouting, including scoutingamerica.com, scoutingamerica.org, and scoutingamerica.net, and developed websites on the infringing domain names displaying content solely related to Boy Scouts. Further, her attempt to falsely associate with Boy Scouts, defendant also created a channel on the social media platform YouTube under the handle Scouting America 1910, which again contains content solely related to Boy Scouts. And this is where I kind of, so far, they haven't done anything to me or and again, they're dressing it up in favor of Boy Scouts of America. But up until this point in time, everything seems legal. It's not like they're saying they stole something or they're infringing on something. It was a domain name available. They got that domain name and they're giving you their version of, from being on the inside, Alice is giving you her version of events and how to help you become an Eagle Scout and how to help parents deal with kind of the Boy Scouts of America. And we all do that. That's the whole part of commentating, social media, websites, whatever the case may be. There's nothing in this lawsuit up until this point that's making me believe that Alice, the former volunteer of Boy Scouts, is doing something wrong. Again, some domain names were available. She got the domain names and she's created a website, a YouTube channel to kind of give her perspective on helping Boy Scouts out. She's not trying to. As a matter of fact, look, I'll even do you one better. Let me know if we got some Eagle Scouts or some former Boy Scouts in the actual chat. But let's look at her website. I mean, her YouTube page. Look at what the YouTube says. This YouTube channel will help parents with Scouts or newbie parents and help guide them through the Scouting BSA process. The ultimate goal for the Scout is to earn the rank of Eagle, but the parents' goal is to help them become good citizens of society. As parents of Scouts, blah, 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 blah. After all this is very do-do-do. Let's look at the end here. Scouting America is reflective of my personal views, thoughts, opinions, and more than 20 years of Scouting experience. This site does not have the endorsement of the Boy Scouts of America, and it is not an official communication channel of the Boy Scouts of America. So she's telling you, hey, this has nothing to do with the Boy Scouts of America. Instead, I'm using my experience of 20 years to kind of help you as a parent navigate the Boy Scouts of America and help you as a kid get the Eagle Scout. Hey, this sounds like she's a consult to me. Like she's essentially providing through her experience consulting for helping parents as well as boys, newbie Boy Scouts navigate that process. That's what it sounds like to me so far. Let's get back to the website. I'm sorry, not the website. Let's get back to the lawsuit here and continue to go through it. Boy Scouts' first awareness of defendant Alice's claim of ownership in Scouting America was when defendant filed an opposition of trademark application filed by Boy Scouts for the mark Scouting America. So it seems like we all know that she bought the domain name Alice did of Scouting America. It seems like Boy Scouts of America ultimately tried to file for a trademark on Scouting America. And I'll be interested in knowing the order of this thing. Did Alice get Scouting of America and then the Boy Scouts tried to file for a trademark application? Or did the Boy Scouts of America file for a trademark application on Scouting of America? And then that's when Alice, because she had already owned the domain name, opposed their trademark. That's important. Let's go here. In which defendant claimed, among other baseless claims, that she had priority over the mark based on her ownership and use of the infringing domain name. So again, it seems like Alice was using the name first, and Boy Scouts of America saw that and tried to file for trademark protection on it. Now it's getting a little interesting. Now it's getting a little interesting. Boy Scouts attempted to negotiate a potential settlement with defendant, which revealed defendant's true intentions to extort an exorbitant sum from Boy Scouts to retrieve the unauthorized domain names and for the withdrawal of the baseless opposition to Boy Scout trademark applications. In my opinion, that's just business. And this is actually, if you kind of peel back the layers, this kind of lets me know that, let me try to bring it back on myself for a second. This kind of lets me know that Atlas was not in the wrong, because I'm not looking to negotiate with you if I hadn't done anything wrong. It seems like she had the domain name first, and Boy Scouts of America wanted that name. So they're saying, Alice, I'm going to pay you some money to get that name. And at this point, it becomes business. So Alice is like, okay, how much is this name worth it to you? Just because I say a price that you don't like, does that mean I'm trying to extort you? No, you can say no, and I can go on with my business and owning the domain name. You can kind of do what you want to do. So it seems like, again, obviously this complaint is going to be written to favor Boy Scouts of America, but I'm just kind of give you guys the other opposing view in real time. It doesn't seem like Boy Scouts of America, they're trying to play victim in this role, but I think Alice so far, and she hasn't infringed on any trademarks of Boy Scouts of America. She's got a domain name, Scouting of America, and it seems like Boy Scouts tried to file for a trademark application afterwards, and she petitioned to cancel the trademark application because she said, hey, look, I was already using this mark. So you shouldn't be able to trademark this because I'm already using this mark and there's a likelihood of confusion. Now, one thing Alice could have done is, in addition to the trademark, in addition to buying the domain names, Scouts of America, she should have filed for trademark protection first. However, I don't think she's in the wrong for petitioning to cancel the mark. That's kind of what I think so far. Let's kind of get back to it and see what is happening after this. Boy Scouts essentially, based on her, Alice trying to extort Boy Scouts of America, according to BSA, Boy Scouts have been left with no choice but to seek court intervention to stop defendants' false accusations, infringement, and unlawful actions. Boy Scouts, we're not going to, I realized it was started in Texas. Let's see what trademark they have. We're going to skip the jurisdiction and venue. Boy Scouts was formed in 1910. Man, that's crazy. Scouts Honor. On my honor, this is a Scout Honor, man. I was dating this one girl recently, and she always, when she says she's going to do something, she always says Scouts Honor. On my honor, I would do my best to do my duties to God and my country and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. That's a Scout oath in the Scout law. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. Boy Scouts has approximately 500,000 adult volunteers. Man, that's a big organization if they have 500,000 adult volunteers across tens of thousands of units, overseen by more than 230 local councils throughout the U.S. and its territories. Okay, these are the marks. So they have a trademark for scouting, scouting for food, scouting for adventure, Scouting U, My Scouting, Friends of Scouting, Scouting Wire, Boy Scouts of America, Cub Scouts, and then these are some of the logos. Now, I would say Scouts of America is Alice's domain name, which again, she owns. She probably wouldn't have gotten the trademark Scouts of America in light of the Boy Scouts of America. I think it would have been a likelihood of confusion, in my opinion. So I think she wouldn't have ultimately gotten a trademark if she would have tried to file for a trademark application on Scouts of America or Scouting America. But again, that's just my thoughts. Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts of America. So they got a number of different trademarks that they own. It seems like they have Scouting of America that they filed for trademark protection last year in April. That's still pending. I would imagine pending the litigation here. So let's go see what Alice did to deserve this. Defendant's voluntary history with Boy Scouts. Defendant has been a volunteer for an adult registered member of Boy Scouts since 1998. That's crazy. 08, 18, almost 30 years. Over nearly 30 years that the defendant has been a volunteer for Boy Scouts. It's not quite 30 years, but it's close. She has held dozens of volunteer positions and completed over 40 training courses about Boy Scouts, its youth programs, and various certification courses offered by Boy Scouts. Defendant's role as a longtime volunteer and registered member gave her access to and knowledge of Boy Scouts organizations and marks, including its use and ownership of the family of Scout marks. Okay, so it seems like kind of based on her being a volunteer, she had authorization to use the trademarks. Upon information of belief, defendant used her decades of access to Boy Scouts and knowledge about its organization and trademarks to create a false association between herself and Boy Scouts to trade off on the goodwill of its famous marks. I disagree with this. I think it was just her gaining experience and knowledge over doing something for 30 years, then going off and saying, hey, I want to do something on my own. I have this experience with this big organization, that being Boy Scouts of America. And I'm going to essentially be a consult for parents and boys who are trying to become Eagle Scouts. That's kind of my take on it so far. Let's get to it. Alice orchestrated this false association through the use of infringing domain names, including Boy Scouts famous marks, displaying content solely about Boy Scouts and its organization and members on the web pages associated with the infringing domain names, and launching the infringing YouTube channel. I don't see it that way. Now, I don't think she would have been awarded the Scouting of America mark, and whether or not that's an infringement on a Boy Scouts of America mark, that can be debated. But so far, by her getting a domain name that was available, that's not trademark infringement, or she hasn't done anything wrong. And to the extent that Boy Scouts of America wanted to buy that, and she didn't want to give it to their price, that doesn't mean that she was trying to extort them. Okay, let's go to D here. The defendant's false association, unauthorized use of Boy Scouts trademark, and wrongful registration of the infringing domain names. Upon information of belief, Alice registered the infringing domain names scoutingamerica.com, scoutingamerica.org, and scoutingamerica.net for the purpose of displaying web pages that created a false. We just read the YouTube channel. It pretty much said that she's not associated with Boy Scouts of America. I think she made that clear. Boy Scouts had no knowledge of defendant's registration of the infringing domain names, nor did Boy Scouts give any authorization, permission, or license to use its trademark in the infringing domain name. Now, I will say this. If Alice did this while she was working at Boy Scouts of America, that's definitely a conflict of interest in my opinion. But if she left Boy Scouts of America as a volunteer and then kind of did all this stuff with her own YouTube channel and stuff like that, I think she's well within her right to do that. Upon information or belief, to the extent there were web pages for any of the infringing domain names, those web pages were limited to content related to Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts, again, yeah. So it seems like this is on her website, Scouting America. Now, I'm not sure if this is the Boy Scout mark. Let's go back up here and see. Yeah, so it seems like they do have a registered trademark on it. And to the extent that she was using this mark, I will say that is trademark infringement. If she was using this on her own personal webpage without permission or authorization, I would say that is trademark infringement. So it seems like, Boy Scouts of America is starting to convince me. Upon information of belief, defendant never offered, advertised, or sold any of her own goods or services on any of the web pages displayed on the infringing domains. Upon discovering the infringing domain names, Boy Scouts attempted to negotiate a purchase of the domain names. Defendant refused. Boy Scouts offered to purchase the domain names, which I guess that was in her right. And that doesn't mean that she's extorting them. Now, I would say, based on using that trademark infringement, I think if she would have took this logo down, she would have been good, in my opinion. You can't use somebody else's trademark logo without their permission on your website. Seems like she was doing that, and I would say she's liable for infringement, for trademark infringement from that. You see how much we have go. We have been at this thing for almost an hour. So we're going to finish up E, and we're not going to read the count here. Defendant's baseless opposition against Boy Scouts trademark application as a negotiating tactic. Defendant filed a notice of opposition. So Alice filed a notice of opposition with the TTAB earlier this year, opposing registration for Boy Scouts trademark application for the mark Scouting America under the trademark application. The basis of the defendant's notice of opposition filed in opposition proceeding is an alleged ownership over the mark Scouting America in connection with the name Scouting America. Okay. Alice described her claim goods and services as associated with membership in an organization for youth and educational services, referring to Boy Scouts members and Boy Scouts organization youth and educational services. In her notice of opposition filed in the opposition proceeding, defendants claim to own the infringing domain names, which she does. Upon information of belief, the web pages for each of the infringing domain names have only ever been comprised of information related to the Boy Scouts members, and Boy Scouts goods, programs, and services. Alice's ownership and the use of the infringing domain name is intended to and does create a false association between defendants and Boy Scouts. Upon information and belief, in March 2025, so a couple months ago, Alice removed the content from the web pages associated with the infringing domain names. Yeah, I would imagine if she took down those trademarks, I think she should be good. Let's see what else they're saying. Alice also alleged in her notice of opposition that her claim of priority is based on her ownership of the infringing YouTube channel under the handle Scouting America, which without permission or authorization uses the Scout marks and other trademarks exclusively by Boy Scouts. So it seems like they're saying, hey, this Scouting America, that Alice is using, it infringes our Boy Scouts of, it's a trademark infringement to our Boy Scouts of America. Again, that can be debated, but that's what it seems like Boy Scout is coming. So far in this one, the infringing YouTube channel also utilizes the year 1910 in the handle. Scouting 19, again, you don't have a trademark on 1910. Further, the defendant's false accusation with Boy Scouts, which was founded in 1910 and touted Boy Scouts website and well known by its members. Let's see here. What else they're saying that's important that I want to go over? Defendant's use of infringing marks and infringing logo in connection with the infringing domain names on the websites associated with the infringing domain names, the infringing YouTube channel, and in connection with the defendant's claimed goods and services wouldn't necessarily be associated by consumers. Again, I can see the trademark infringement for the Boy Scouts of America. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. So let me know. Let me know if, number one, are you a Boy Scout? It is some takeaways that I do want to talk about this. Alice, I think that her getting a domain name, again, that was well within her right to do so. And to the extent that she did not want to give that or sell that domain name to Boy Scouts of America, that does not mean that she was somehow extorting them. So I do want to kind of get that straight. But again, Boy Scouts of America, I think, do have a claim of trademark infringement against her. Number one, for the logo that was on her website. Seems like she took the logo down. So it seems like she kind of remedied that. But I think it's debatable on whether or not Scouting of America is a trademark infringement to Boy Scouts of America. Let me know what you guys think in the comments or in the chat on that one. Do you think that Scouting of America that's used by Alice, would you get confused, or is that a likelihood of confusion with the Boy Scouts of America mark? Let me know that in the comments. That's I don't know. I think so. Essentially, let me pull up her website here, not the website, but the YouTube channel, which has over 2,000 subscribers. Do you think this Scouting of America mark, would you get confused to think that's somehow associated with Boy Scouts of America? I think Boy Scouts of America has a, I think that's up for debate. I can see some saying yes, I can see some saying no. I think that's where this is going to turn. But so yeah, I think this is where this is going to turn. But again, the value in this intellectual property domain names is IP that doesn't get talked about a lot. But the fact that she saw that scoutingamerica.com was available, she purchased those domain names, and Boy Scouts of America, and that was well within her right to purchase those domain names. And Boy Scouts of America wanted to buy them from her. She didn't like the price that they was offering, and that's not extortion. That's just business. I don't like the price you're trying. You can't force me to sell something for a price that I don't want to take. I can, in business and contracts, I can decide not to take your offer, and that's not trademark infringement. That in and of itself. Now, whether or not using Scouting America is trademark infringement to Boy Scouts of America, I think that's going to come out to play. If I had to guess, I think all this is going to somehow be settled. And it seems like I would imagine that Alice is going to get some type of money and Boy Scouts of America is going to be happy as well. But I will say this as I close. And please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as hit that subscribe button. Number one, domain names can be a valuable intellectual. I have like 10 domain names that I'm just sitting on. Some of them I'm using, and some of them I do plan on using in the future. But domain names is one of those IP that you can sit on. Probably have to pay $50, $100 a year, but they are assets, valuable assets. I think one time they were telling me with GoDaddy, like, oh, your IP portfolio as far as domain names is like a couple grand at this point. So domain names are valuable. And then number two, to the extent that you get experience being at a company for 10, 20, 30 years, there's nothing wrong with breaking off from that company and going to start a business that's somehow consulting your former company or other competitors. It seems like that's essentially what Alice was doing. She worked at Boy Scouts of America for nearly 30 years. And she decided to the extent that she did go off on her own, it was not clear whether or not she was still doing this while she was employed at Boy Scouts of America. And if she was doing that, then that is definitely a conflict of interest. But to the extent that she broke away from Boy Scouts of America and started her own thing, consulting parents as well as newbie Boy Scouts on how to become an Eagle Scout. Again, I advocate for that all the time. Start a business based on your experience at a prior company for a number of years and kind of run it up that way. Protect your IP and run it up that way. Now, whether or not Scouting America is a likelihood of confusion with Boy Scouts of America, I guess that remains to be seen. But I like what Alice is doing, which again brings me back to my original point. The dichotomy of a capitalistic society. On one end, you have an opportunity to get all this experience and go start your own company. But on the other end, as a business owner, you're essentially paying somebody to one day maybe be a competition to you. So yeah, I'm not sure, man. Let me know what you guys think in the chat.